Before you go any further, before you scroll, before your mind tells you this is just another message, pause. This moment, this exact second, was not random. You did not arrive here by accident. Something higher, something protective, something deeply aware of your current struggle has guided you here right now. My beloved, a divine tear has fallen, and it fell for you. There is a reason your heart has been restless lately. A reason your spirit has felt pulled in different directions, like threads stretching between what was and what is about to be. You may have tried to ignore it. You may have told yourself it's just stress, just life, just another phase. But deep down, you know, something is shifting. And here is the urgency: you are standing inside a narrow window of time. Not to pressure you, but to awaken you. Because when heaven reaches this close, when the veil thins like this, it does not stay open forever. There are moments of alignment, and there are moments missed. This is not about fear. This is about awareness. Because there are two paths forming in front of you right now, even if you cannot fully see them yet. One continues exactly as things have been: delays, confusion, unanswered questions, that quiet weight you've been carrying. The other begins with this very moment. With you choosing to listen instead of turning away. And I need you to feel this: this message is not chasing everyone. It found you. Out of all the noise, all the distractions, all the endless scrolling, something interrupted your pattern. That interruption is not small. It is intentional. It is precise. It is personal. So don't brush this off. Because here is the truth most people miss: when a divine message is ignored, it doesn't come back in the same way. Not because you are abandoned, but because timing matters. Alignment matters. And right now, everything is aligning around you in ways you cannot yet see. Have you noticed it? The strange pauses. The unexpected thoughts. The feeling like something is about to happen but hasn't yet revealed itself? That is not your imagination. That is the beginning. And this is your confirmation: you are not forgotten. You are not overlooked. You are not behind. You are being positioned. But positioning requires attention. So if something inside you is stirring right now, if you feel even the smallest pull to stay, to listen, to receive, I want you to anchor this moment. Type "I am listening" in the comments, not for me, but as a declaration that you are aware and choosing alignment over distraction. Because what happens next depends on this choice. Stay with me, because in the next part, you're going to understand why this moment found you now, and what has been trying to reach you all along. And as you stay here, as you choose not to turn away, something begins to settle within you, because this is not the first time you've been called. This is not the first moment heaven has leaned close to your life, whispering, nudging, trying to get your attention. My beloved child, you have been receiving signals for longer than you realize. Think back for a moment. Not too far, just enough to notice the pattern. The times when something told you to pause, but you kept going. The moments when you felt a deep pull to change direction, yet logic convinced you otherwise. The quiet inner voice that spoke gently, not loudly, but persistently, and somehow got drowned out. Those were not random thoughts. That was communication. You see, divine guidance rarely arrives as noise. It comes as a subtle shift, a feeling that doesn't quite make sense at first. A hesitation before a decision. A sense of peace about something that should have worried you, or unease about something that looked perfect on the surface. And yet, because it didn't come with certainty, you questioned it. Because it didn't shout, you overlooked it. But let me ask you something: how many times have you looked back and realized you knew something before it happened? How many times did clarity come too late, only after the choice was already made? That is not coincidence. That is a pattern. Heaven has been speaking to you in layers, through delays that didn't make sense, through closed doors that felt unfair, through redirections that confused you at the time but protected you in ways you couldn't yet see. What felt like rejection was often protection. What felt like silence was often guidance waiting for your stillness. And what felt like delay was alignment happening behind the scenes. My beloved, nothing you've experienced has been wasted. Even the moments you regret, even the paths you wish you hadn't taken, they became part of how you would begin to recognize this voice now. Because now, you are starting to see it. Now, you are starting to feel the difference between fear and guidance. Fear rushes you. It pressures you. It fills your mind with noise and urgency that leads to confusion. But divine direction, it steadies you. Even when it warns you, it carries a strange peace with it. Even when it redirects you, it doesn't tear you down, it calls you higher. And if you're honest, you felt both. You felt the chaos of moving too quickly, choosing out of fear, reacting instead of aligning. And you've also felt those rare, quiet moments where something just felt right, even if you couldn't explain why. That difference, that contrast, is where recognition begins. This is why you are here now. Not because you've never been guided, but because you are finally ready to recognize the guidance as it happens, not after. And there is something else you need to understand. Those missed signs? They were not failures. They were lessons in awareness. Because the more you notice, the clearer the signal becomes. The more you listen, the stronger the connection grows. And right now, in this very moment, that connection is strengthening again. You are not starting over. You are picking up where you left off, but with sharper vision. So don't let doubt tell you that you've missed your chance. Don't let regret convince you that you are too late. You are not late, you are awakening. But here is the deeper truth, and this is where everything begins to shift. It's not just that messages were subtle. It's that something has been interfering with how you receive them. Something that thrives in distraction. Something that clouds clarity. Something that benefits when you second-guess yourself and disconnect from that quiet inner knowing. And in the next part, you're going to see exactly what that is, and why it has been working so hard to keep you from hearing clearly. And now that you're beginning to recognize the pattern, now that something inside you is waking up to the fact that you have been guided all along, you stand at a very delicate point. Because awareness changes responsibility. My beloved, this is where the message becomes heavier, not to burden you, but to awaken you fully. Because once you see, once you feel, once you know, ignoring it carries a different weight than before. Before, you didn't understand the signals. Before, you could dismiss the nudges as coincidence. But now? Now something in you is starting to recognize truth when it touches your spirit. And this is the warning. If you turn away now, if you choose distraction over alignment, noise over clarity, fear over trust, the pattern does not disappear. It repeats. The same cycles you've been trying to escape will quietly rebuild themselves around you. The same delays that left you confused will return in different forms. The same doors that almost opened will hover just out of reach again, not because you are denied, but because you are misaligned. Do you feel that? This is not punishment. This is consequence of direction. Because there are always two paths moving beneath your life. One path is familiar. It is the path of reaction, of rushing decisions, of listening to fear disguised as logic. It feels immediate, almost urgent, but it leads you back into cycles, delayed answers, unstable connections, opportunities that almost work but never fully land. This is the old path. And if you ignore this moment, you don't fall, you simply remain there. But the other path, the one opening right now, is different. It requires stillness instead of panic. It asks for trust instead of control. It invites you to listen before you move, to feel before you decide, to align before you act. This is the new path. And here is where the tension rises, because the new path does not always look faster at first. It does not always shout for your attention. In fact, it often feels quieter, almost easy to overlook. But beneath that quiet is acceleration. Beneath that stillness is precision. Beneath that surrender is protection. So the question is not whether something is happening in your life. The question is, which path are you feeding? Because every moment you choose distraction, you strengthen delay. Every moment you choose fear, you reinforce confusion. But every moment you choose awareness, even now, even by staying here, you begin to shift. Let me give you a truth that most people never realize until much later. Breakthrough is rarely missed all at once. It is missed in small moments. In the scroll that distracted you. In the decision rushed. In the feeling ignored. In the quiet voice dismissed. And over time, those small moments become a pattern, and that pattern becomes a life that feels stuck, even though movement was always available. This is why this moment matters. Not because everything depends on one choice, but because this choice reveals which direction you are stepping into. And something inside you already knows this. You can feel the difference right now between staying and leaving. Between leaning in and pulling away. Between trusting this moment and dismissing it. That tension you feel? That is the crossroads pressing against your spirit. So hear this clearly, ignoring this message does not close every door forever. But it does delay what is already trying to reach you. It does slow what is already aligning. It does keep you circling what you were meant to move through. And my beloved, you have circled long enough. You have waited long enough. You have questioned yourself long enough. This is where that changes, but only if you stay aware. Because what you're about to understand next will show you why this has been so difficult, and why staying aligned has felt harder than it should. There is something influencing the noise. Something subtle, but persistent. And in the next part, you will begin to see the force that has been quietly working against your clarity all along. And now you begin to understand why staying aligned has felt harder than it should, why clarity slips away just when you start to feel it, why peace gets interrupted the moment it settles in. My beloved, this is not all coming from within you. There are forces in this world that thrive in distraction, in confusion, in disconnection from truth. Not everything you have felt is yours. Not every doubt that entered your mind was born from your spirit. Not every delay was simply timing. Some of it has been interference. Now listen carefully, this is not to make you afraid. You are not being singled out for harm. You are not under attack in the way fear would want you to believe. But you are significant enough that resistance forms when you begin to move toward alignment. Because light draws attention. When you begin to shift, when you begin to awaken, when you begin to move closer to what is meant for you, it disrupts what has been comfortable in the unseen. And sometimes, that disruption creates pressure. Have you noticed how certain moments of clarity were followed by sudden doubt? How just as you were about to step forward, something distracted you, delayed you, or pulled your focus away? How certain people seemed supportive on the surface, yet left you feeling drained, uncertain, or heavy afterward? This is where awareness becomes power. Not everything is obvious. Some resistance comes quietly, through energy, through influence, through subtle redirection of your attention. Jealousy that is never spoken. Negativity that is never declared. Environments that slowly disconnect you from your inner knowing. It doesn't always look dark. Sometimes it looks like noise. Endless scrolling. Overthinking. Conversations that lead nowhere. Thoughts that spiral without resolution. These are the spaces where clarity gets lost, not because it disappears, but because it is drowned out. And the more you disconnect from that quiet, steady voice within you, the easier it becomes for interference to feel like your own thinking. But here is the truth that shifts everything: you are not as vulnerable as you may have felt. Because the moment you become aware of interference, it begins to lose its power. Fear wants you to believe you are exposed. Truth reminds you that you are covered. And this is where the shift happens, from unconscious reaction to conscious recognition. You start to notice what drains you. You start to sense what pulls you away from peace. You begin to feel the difference between what is aligned and what is not. That is not weakness. That is awakening. My beloved, there are things that could not stop you directly, so they tried to distract you indirectly. They could not close every door, so they tried to keep you from walking through the ones that opened. They could not silence your calling, so they filled your space with enough noise that you would question it yourself. But you are seeing now. And seeing changes everything. So instead of fear, choose awareness. Instead of panic, choose grounding. Instead of questioning your worth, begin to recognize your sensitivity as a form of guidance. And right here, in this moment, I want you to make a simple declaration, not out of obligation, but out of alignment. Comment: I choose protection. Not as a reaction to fear, but as a recognition of truth. Because protection is not something you are begging for. It is something that has already been surrounding you, even when you didn't fully see it. And in the next part, you are going to understand just how real that protection is, and what has been standing around you this entire time, unseen but unwavering. And now that your eyes are opening to what has been influencing you, now that you can feel the difference between clarity and confusion, you arrive here. This moment is not casual. This is the crossroads. My beloved, imagine for a second that you are standing before two doors. Not far away, not hidden somewhere in the future, but right here, within your reach. You don't need permission to approach them. You don't need to become someone else to qualify. You are already standing in front of them now. But here is what makes this moment so powerful: both doors are open. And yet, they lead to very different realities. The first door feels familiar. It carries the energy you've known for a long time. When you look toward it, you recognize the patterns: overthinking, second-guessing, moving out of fear, reacting instead of aligning. It promises quick answers, immediate action, control over uncertainty. But step closer, and you will feel it. There is weight behind that door. It leads back into cycles, delays that don't make sense, connections that drain instead of support, opportunities that almost come together but never fully stabilize. It is the path where you keep trying harder, pushing more, forcing outcomes, yet somehow, things remain just out of alignment. This is the path of fear disguised as control. And then there is the second door. At first glance, it may seem quieter. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't pressure you with urgency or overwhelm your thoughts. In fact, it almost feels unfamiliar, because it asks something different of you. It asks you to trust. To pause. To listen before acting. And for many, that feels uncomfortable at first. Because you have been taught that movement equals progress, that speed equals success. But this door, it operates differently. Behind it is clarity. Behind it is alignment. Behind it is a kind of acceleration that doesn't come from force, but from precision. Do you feel the contrast? One door pulls you into noise. The other draws you into stillness. One keeps you cycling. The other begins to shift your direction. And here is the truth: you cannot walk through both. Every small decision you make, every moment you choose to stay aware or to drift back into distraction, is a step toward one door or the other. This is why this moment matters so deeply. Because you are not waiting for a sign anymore. You are inside one. Right now. Let me ask you something, and answer honestly within yourself. What has your current path been producing? Has it brought you peace? Has it brought you clarity? Or has it left you feeling like you are always close, but never quite there? That feeling of almost, that is the signature of misalignment. Not failure. Not lack. Just misdirection. And the beautiful part is, you are not stuck there. You are being invited out of it. But invitation requires response. This is where empowerment replaces confusion. You are not here to guess your way forward anymore. You are here to choose consciously. To recognize what pulls you away from your center, and what draws you back into it. Because the moment you choose the second door, the moment you choose trust over fear, alignment over reaction, you activate something immediate. Not later. Not someday. Now. A shift begins the second you decide. And it may not look loud at first. It may not announce itself with dramatic change. But internally, something locks into place. A covering forms. A clarity sharpens. A direction steadies. You begin to move differently, and because of that, outcomes begin to change. So stand here fully, my beloved. Feel the weight of this moment, not as pressure, but as power. You are not being forced. You are being invited. And in the next part, you are going to see what happens the instant you choose alignment, and what has already been placed around you to protect that choice. And as you stand at this crossroads, feeling the weight of your choice, something else needs to settle into your spirit now. You are not standing here alone. Before you ever reached this moment, before you even began to question, before you noticed the patterns or felt the pull, protection was already moving into place around you. My beloved, the shield was not placed after your decision. It was placed in anticipation of it. This is where fear begins to loosen its grip, because what you thought was vulnerability was never exposure. It was positioning. There is a covering over your life that you cannot always see, but you have felt it in moments you didn't understand. The times when something could have gone wrong, but didn't. The moments when a situation collapsed, and later you realized it saved you. The unexpected pauses that frustrated you at first, but protected you from stepping too soon. That was not luck. That was shielding. Picture this for a moment, not as imagination, but as truth your spirit can recognize. A radiant presence standing just beyond what your physical eyes can perceive. A shield of light surrounding you, not fragile, not temporary, but steady. A sword not raised in panic, but held in readiness, calm, precise, unwavering. This is not chaos. This is order. And you are within it. The problem is not that protection has been absent. The problem is that fear made it feel like you were unprotected. Fear amplifies what could go wrong. Protection quietly ensures what will not. Do you see the difference? When you focus on fear, you begin to move as if you are alone. You rush decisions. You accept less than you deserve. You try to control outcomes because you feel unsupported. But when you recognize protection, everything shifts. You begin to move with intention instead of urgency. You begin to trust pauses instead of resisting them. You begin to sense when something is not aligned, not as rejection, but as redirection. And this is where empowerment is born. Because protection is not just about keeping harm away. It is about guiding you toward what is right. Every door that closed, shield. Every delay that frustrated you, shield. Every moment something felt off and didn't work out, shield. My beloved, you have not been blocked. You have been guarded. Let that truth settle into you now. You were never meant to fight everything on your own. You were never meant to figure it all out through pressure and force. There has always been something greater moving with you, around you, ahead of you. And the moment you align with that, the moment you stop seeing life as resistance and start recognizing it as guidance, you begin to walk differently. You stop chasing. You start receiving. You stop forcing. You start flowing. And here is the shift that changes everything. The same protection that kept certain things away from you is now preparing to allow the right things through. Because shielding is not just about holding back. It is also about timing release. There are doors that were not opened before because you were not meant to walk through them then. There are connections that did not form because they were not aligned with where you are now becoming. But now, something is changing. Now, the shield is not only guarding, it is positioning. You may not see it fully yet, but you will begin to notice it. Subtle at first. Then undeniable. Because what has been happening internally is about to reflect externally. And in the next part, you are going to see how this shift begins to move in your life, and how acceleration starts to replace the delays you once questioned. And as this protection settles around you, as you begin to feel the difference between fear and covering, something begins to move. Not loudly. Not all at once. But undeniably. My beloved, this is the turning point. For so long, it felt like you were pushing against something invisible. Like no matter how much effort you gave, things only shifted slightly, or not at all. You questioned your timing. You questioned your decisions. You even questioned yourself. But what you were experiencing was not denial. It was delay with purpose. And now, that delay is breaking. There is a moment in every journey where alignment reaches a critical point, where what has been building quietly beneath the surface finally begins to rise into motion. That moment does not always look dramatic at first. In fact, it often feels subtle. But it is powerful. Because once movement begins from alignment, it carries momentum that force could never create. Do you feel that shift? It may feel like a small sense of relief. A lightness where there was once heaviness. A quiet confidence replacing constant doubt. You may not have all the answers yet, but something inside you feels steadier. That is acceleration beginning. Not chaos. Not rushing. Not pressure. True acceleration. The kind that comes from things finally lining up. You see, when you were operating from fear, every step required effort. You had to push, convince, chase, and hold everything together. And even then, the results felt fragile, like they could fall apart at any moment. That is the old pattern. But when alignment takes over, things begin to meet you halfway. Opportunities start to appear without force. Clarity comes before confusion has time to settle. Connections begin to feel natural instead of draining. This is not coincidence. This is alignment activating movement. And here is what most people don't realize: acceleration doesn't always begin with external change. It begins within you. Your thinking shifts. Your reactions change. Your energy becomes more focused, more grounded, more intentional. And because of that, everything around you begins to respond differently. This is why some people remain stuck even when opportunities are near, because acceleration is not just about what comes to you, it is about who you are becoming as it arrives. And right now, you are becoming aligned with movement. So don't expect everything to change overnight in a way that overwhelms you. That is not how divine acceleration works. It builds. Step by step. Signal by signal. Until suddenly, what once felt impossible begins to unfold with a kind of ease that surprises you. But here is your role in this moment. Stay aware. Stay grounded. Stay open. Because acceleration requires participation. Not force, but awareness. The more present you are, the more clearly you will recognize what is unfolding. And this is where you anchor it. Right here. Right now. Type "I receive acceleration" in the comments, not as a habit, but as a declaration that you are ready to move with what is already beginning. Because something has shifted. You are no longer waiting in the same way. You are no longer circling the same place. You are stepping forward, even if it feels quiet at first. And very soon, you will begin to see it. Not just feel it, see it. There will be signs. Clear, undeniable confirmations that this movement is real. That what is aligning beneath the surface is starting to reveal itself in your reality. But you must know what to look for. Because the signs will not always appear how you expect. And in the next part, you're going to understand exactly what those signs are, and how to recognize them the moment they begin to show. And as this acceleration begins to move within you, as you start to sense that something is finally shifting, there is one more step that cannot be avoided. You cannot carry the old version of yourself into what is now opening. My beloved, this is where release begins. Not forced. Not rushed. But necessary. Because the very things that once shaped you, are not the things meant to define you anymore. Think about what you've been holding. The disappointment that never fully left. The betrayal that still echoes in your thoughts when you least expect it. The delays that made you question your worth, your timing, even your path. You learned to carry these things as protection. You told yourself, if I remember the pain, I won't repeat it. If I stay guarded, I won't be hurt again. And for a time, that felt like strength. But now? Now those same defenses are becoming weight. Because protection that comes from fear, keeps you closed. But protection that comes from alignment, allows you to stay open without being exposed. Do you feel the difference? One version of you is holding tightly, analyzing every possibility, expecting disappointment, bracing for what could go wrong. That is the old identity. And it makes sense why it formed. It was built through experience. Through moments where trust felt broken, where outcomes didn't match your hope. But here is the truth that changes everything. You are no longer in the same place where those patterns were created. And yet, you've been responding as if you are. This is why release is not about forgetting. It is about recognizing that you don't need to carry that version of yourself forward anymore. Because who you are becoming, does not need those defenses to survive. You are stepping into alignment. And alignment does not require constant guarding. It requires presence. It requires trust. It requires the willingness to let go of what no longer fits, even if it once felt necessary. So what are you still holding that is not meant to go with you? Is it the belief that things will always be delayed? Is it the expectation that people will disappoint you? Is it the habit of second-guessing your own inner knowing? These are not truths. They are echoes. And echoes only continue when they are repeated. My beloved, you are being invited to break that loop. Not by force, but by awareness. The moment you notice the old pattern rising, you pause. You breathe. You choose differently. And in that small choice, a chain breaks. This is how transformation happens, not all at once, but in moments of conscious release. You don't need to fight your past. You simply need to stop letting it lead. Because the more you release, the lighter you become. The more you let go, the clearer you see. The more you trust, the easier it becomes to move with what is unfolding. And suddenly, what once felt heavy, no longer defines your steps. You begin to walk forward without dragging yesterday behind you. You begin to respond to life as it is now, not as it once was. That is freedom. And here is the shift you must understand: release creates space. Not emptiness. Space. And that space does not remain empty for long. Because as you let go of what no longer belongs, something new begins to move toward you. Something aligned. Something steady. Something that does not require you to shrink, to guard, or to question your worth. And in the next part, you are going to see how this release begins to show itself through clear signs, and how you will recognize that what is entering your life is truly meant for you. And as you begin to release what no longer belongs to you, as that weight starts to lift and space opens within your life, something else begins to take its place. Clarity. Not all at once. Not in overwhelming waves. But in signs, specific, intentional, unmistakable signs. My beloved, you will not be left guessing. When alignment begins to take hold, when acceleration is truly moving, there is always confirmation. The problem is not that signs are absent, it's that they are often misunderstood, overlooked, or expected to appear in a different form. So let me bring you into awareness, because once you see this pattern, you will not miss it again. The first sign is not external. It is internal. Peace. And not the kind of peace that comes when everything is perfect. Not the kind that depends on circumstances going your way. This is different. This is a quiet stillness that settles within you, even when questions remain. You may still be waiting for answers. You may still not see the full picture. But something inside you stops panicking. The urgency fades. The overthinking softens. And in its place, there is steadiness. That is the first confirmation. Alignment always begins with peace, not pressure. Fear will try to rush you. It will demand immediate clarity, immediate results, immediate control. But divine movement, it steadies you first. So if you feel that calm beginning to rise within you, even in the middle of uncertainty, that is not random. That is the signal. Now here is the second sign. Synchronicity. This is where things begin to show up around you in ways that feel too precise to ignore. Repeated numbers catching your attention at just the right moment. Words spoken by others that answer questions you didn't even say out loud. Messages appearing exactly when you needed direction. At first, it may feel small. Easy to dismiss. But pay attention to the pattern. Because synchronicity is not about one isolated moment, it is about repetition with meaning. You will begin to notice that certain themes keep appearing. Certain reminders keep finding you. Certain confirmations arrive just when doubt tries to return. That is not coincidence. That is alignment communicating with you in a language you can recognize. And here is the key: do not chase the signs. Receive them. Because when you chase, you move back into control. But when you receive, you remain in alignment. Now the third sign, this is where it becomes undeniable. Change. Real, external movement. Doors that begin to open without force. Opportunities that come together with less resistance. Conversations that shift direction in ways you did not plan, but somehow feel right. This is where what has been happening internally starts to reflect in your reality. And it may not be loud at first. It may come as a single opportunity. A single conversation. A single moment that feels different. But that is how alignment works. It builds through consistency, not chaos. So watch closely. Because once the first external shift appears, others will follow. Momentum will begin to form. And what once felt distant, will start to feel closer, more tangible, more real. This is how you know you are not imagining it. This is how you know something is truly moving. Peace. Then synchronicity. Then change. Remember that sequence. Because when you recognize it, doubt loses its power. Confusion fades. And trust becomes easier. My beloved, you are not meant to walk blindly. You are meant to see, to feel, to recognize. And now, you will. But here is what most people don't expect. As these signs begin to appear, they will not only affect your circumstances. They will begin to affect your connections. Because not everyone can move with you into alignment. And in the next part, you are going to understand how these signs will start to shift your relationships, and why certain people may begin to fall away as others enter your life. And as these signs begin to appear in your life, as peace settles, synchronicities align, and movement starts to unfold, you may notice something else happening that feels harder to understand. People begin to shift. My beloved, this is where many feel confusion again, not because something is wrong, but because something is changing at a deeper level than expected. Connections that once felt natural may begin to feel distant. Conversations that used to flow may now feel forced. Energies that once felt familiar may suddenly feel heavy, draining, or out of sync with where you are. And your first instinct may be to hold on. To fix it. To question yourself. To wonder if you did something wrong. But hear this clearly, this is not rejection. This is realignment. Because as you change internally, as your awareness sharpens and your direction becomes clearer, not everything around you is meant to remain the same. Some connections were built for a version of you that is no longer leading your life. Some relationships were aligned with your past patterns, your past fears, your past ways of thinking and responding. And as you release those patterns, the connections tied to them begin to loosen. This is where the emotional weight comes in. Because even when something is no longer aligned, it can still feel familiar. And familiar can feel safe, even when it is limiting. So when distance begins to form, it can feel like loss. Like something is being taken from you. But my beloved, nothing aligned with your purpose is being taken. It is being refined. Let yourself feel that. You are not losing people because you are unworthy. You are not being separated because you failed. You are being guided into environments, into connections, into spaces that match who you are becoming, not who you used to be. And sometimes, that means letting go of what once felt permanent. This is where trust must rise. Because the old pattern would tell you to chase. To hold tighter. To force understanding. To try and bring things back to how they were. But the new alignment asks something different. It asks you to observe. To accept. To release with grace instead of resistance. Because what is meant to stay, will not require you to shrink to keep it. And what is meant to leave, will not be sustained by force. Do you see the difference? One path is driven by fear of loss. The other is guided by trust and alignment. And this is where your empowerment deepens. You begin to recognize that not every ending is negative. Some endings are protection. Some distances are guidance. Some silences are clarity. Because as certain people step back, step away, or fall out of alignment with your journey, space is created. And just like before, that space does not remain empty. It prepares. It makes room. It allows something new to enter, something that does not confuse you, drain you, or pull you out of your center. Something that meets you where you are now. Something that supports your direction instead of distracting from it. But this part requires patience. Because the release often comes before the replacement. And in that in-between space, it can feel quiet. Uncertain. Even lonely at times. But do not mistake that space for absence. It is preparation. Because what is coming will not feel like what you lost. It will feel aligned. Natural. Steady. And in the next part, you are going to see what begins to enter your life after this separation, and how the blessing that replaces what was released may be greater than you expected. And as space has been created, as what no longer aligned has gently moved out of your life, you may have wondered, what now? What replaces what was lost? What comes after the silence, after the distance, after the release? My beloved, this is where the blessing begins to reveal itself. Not as something random. Not as something forced. but as something that has been forming quietly, patiently, in perfect timing, waiting for the moment you were ready to receive it. Because what is coming into your life now is not a repetition of the past. It is a response to your alignment. For so long, you may have felt like you were reaching, trying to make things work, trying to create stability, trying to hold together pieces that never fully fit. But what is arriving now will not require that same effort. This is the difference. What is meant for you in this season meets you differently. It does not confuse you. It does not drain you. It does not leave you questioning your worth or your direction. Instead, it brings clarity. A knowing that settles in without force. A sense of rightness that doesn't need constant validation. You will begin to notice this first in small ways. Decisions that once felt overwhelming will start to feel clear. Paths that once felt blocked will begin to open. Opportunities will appear, not all at once, but in sequence, each one connecting to the next in a way that feels intentional. This is not coincidence. This is provision. And provision does not always look like abundance at first glance. Sometimes it looks like the exact resource, the exact timing, the exact connection you need in that moment, and nothing more. But it is enough. And it builds. Step by step, what once felt uncertain begins to stabilize. What once felt fragile begins to strengthen. What once felt distant begins to come closer. This is where restoration also begins to take shape. Not always by bringing back what was lost, but by bringing in something better aligned. Because restoration is not about returning to the past. It is about receiving what truly fits your present. You may find that what comes into your life now carries a different energy, calmer, steadier, more supportive. It doesn't pull you into confusion. It doesn't require you to prove yourself. It meets you with the same clarity you have been learning to hold within yourself. And this is how you know it is aligned. My beloved, you are not stepping into something temporary. You are stepping into something that reflects who you are becoming. And here is the truth that must settle deeply into you: you are worthy of this. Not because you struggled enough. Not because you waited long enough. But because you chose alignment when it would have been easier to return to old patterns. That choice opened the door. So receive what is coming without hesitation. Receive it without questioning whether it will last. Receive it without shrinking yourself to match it. Because what is entering your life now is not here to test you. It is here to support you. And as it begins to unfold, you will see it more clearly. You will feel it more deeply. You will recognize that what once felt like delay was preparation. But there is one final step. One final moment that anchors everything you have heard, everything you have felt, everything that is now beginning to move in your life. And in the next part, you are going to seal this alignment, so what has begun cannot be easily shaken. And now, as everything you have heard begins to settle within you, as the clarity, the awareness, the shift, and the movement all come together, this is the moment where it becomes anchored. Not just understood. Sealed. My beloved, what has been awakened in you is not fragile. It is not temporary. But it must be grounded, so that what has begun cannot be easily shaken by doubt, distraction, or fear returning to reclaim space. So right now, wherever you are, take a breath. Slow down for just a moment. And receive this. Heavenly Father, we come into this moment with open hearts and awakened spirits. For the one listening right now, the one who was guided here with intention, I ask that your presence surround them completely. Let your peace settle over their mind. Let your clarity fill their thoughts. Let every trace of confusion begin to dissolve. My beloved, receive this. May every door that is not aligned gently close without struggle. May every path meant for you begin to open with ease and precision. May every force that once distracted you lose its influence. And may your spirit become so steady, so grounded, that you recognize truth the moment it touches your life. You are covered. You are guided. You are not walking blindly anymore. Let that settle deeply into you. And now, I speak protection over you. Not from fear, but from authority. May every unseen interference be silenced. May every negative influence lose its hold. May every step you take from this moment forward be aligned with clarity, not confusion. My beloved, you are not alone in this. You never were. And you never will be. Now receive this final activation. From this moment forward, you do not return to the old patterns. You do not shrink back into fear. You do not second-guess what your spirit already recognizes. You move with awareness. You move with trust. You move with alignment. And as you do, everything begins to respond differently. Because you have changed. So anchor this now. Type Amen in the comments, not as a habit, but as a declaration that this message is sealed in your life. That you are choosing alignment. That you are stepping forward, not backward. And if this message spoke to you, if something within you recognized truth, then stay connected to this space. Not out of obligation, but because alignment requires consistency. Subscribe, stay present, and allow yourself to continue receiving what strengthens your clarity and your direction. And if you know someone who has been struggling, someone who feels lost or delayed, share this with them. Because breakthrough is not meant to be held back. It is meant to flow. My beloved, hear this clearly as we close. You were meant to hear this. Not by chance. Not by accident. But by design. Everything that led you here, every delay, every question, every moment of uncertainty, has brought you to this point of awareness. And now, you move forward differently. With protection. With clarity. With purpose. And with the quiet certainty that what is meant for you, is already finding its way. Stay in alignment. Stay aware. And trust what is unfolding.